Yeah, it's very passionate about this topic, and it's very important.
I personally have dietary restrictions, so I'm like, yes, tell them. But the clear labeling is critical too. So many times there's menus that just, it's not labeled. Like, so then you have to ask, or they're like, actually at my hotel, they were like, you could go to this restaurant, and if they don't have something, just ask them if the chef will like whip something up, which I'm sure their chef really appreciates. But also I'm like, I'm not gonna go to a restaurant, sit down and be like, can you make this thing that's not on the menu? Oh no, we'll have to leave. Like, who's doing that? So just I mean, I know, but just saying that whole
Yes.
awkwardness,
It is.
could be
It's very
avoided
awkward.
if it was just labeled, communicated, prepared. Is that something that your restaurant is willing to do or not? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I'm much more likely to visit a restaurant that is listing their menu on site and saying specifically, if you have if you need dietary accommodations, please talk to our chef.
Yeah, we're happy to work with you.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, the rest of the panel, what other specific things could locations do?
I will hone in on like sensory sensitivities and some of the accommodations that businesses can do, which can be like the education a lot of times is coming from the DMOs and CVBs for the businesses on the types of accommodations that can help somebody with a sensory sensitivity. So a few examples would be sensory rooms or low stimulation rooms. So in like a really crowded place like an airport or a museum, having a place where if somebody's getting overstimulated that they can go and sit in a quiet space. There are many locations that have sensory maps. So a zoo would be a great option for this. So a map of the entire zoo, but looks a little bit different. Like if it's a loud space, there's an ear on it. And if it's really bright space, maybe there's sunglasses. And so just allowing people to know what to expect like ahead of time again. So I think that those are also, as I mentioned, social stories. So social stories they can be simple or complex, but it's just, okay, I'm going to the zoo today. It would be paper format or digital. I'm going to the zoo today. We are going to stand in line. We are going to pay for our ticket, and like there would be pictures associated with the steps of going to the zoo. And there's an amazing organization called PAL, and they do like video social stories for like museums and zoos and attractions as well. So there are a lot of like sensory accommodations that can really help. There are organizations that do sensory backpacks. So that's a backpack that somebody can check out when they get to a location that might have actual sunglasses. So if it's bright, they could have sunglasses. Oh, this is one of the favorite things that I've learned in the last year. I learned this from the Houston Space Center. In their sensory backpacks, they have sticky notes. And I thought, sticky notes, huh? And so it is for the automatic flushers. So the automatic flushers and the automatic hand dryers can cause a lot of anxiety. And some places actually will designate one area that doesn't have those things. And so you can put a sticky note over the automatic flusher so that it doesn't go off when you stand up, and then maybe a caregiver can pull that sticky note off.
We had to do that
Yeah.
with my oldest. She was terrified. Terrified.
Yeah.
Hate.
So and also in the sensory backpacks like fidgets and things to just like keep a kiddo occupied maybe while waiting at a restaurant, things like that. So it looks like we're running lowish on time, so I'm going to stop talking.
Okay, so thank you, wonderful. Accommodations. So over the last 10 years, I've been planning and curating sensory-friendly events that we now run monthly, and we have standard operating procedures for those. The movies, we have sensory-friendly movies where the lights are up, the sound is down, and the people are free to move around. We've got sensory-friendly jumps at Big Air, and we have monthly sensory-friendly birthday bowling bashes, because we've all heard about those horrible things where families are planning a big birthday party, like if we plan it, they will come, and their child with autism is socially awkward and people don't show, so we all celebrate together. Ripley's Aquarium visits, so for attractions, having sensory-friendly times is really great. And of course, hotels, when Christy was talking about expedited check-in, that's certainly one thing we do. And then with our participating restaurants, one of the things that we ask is that our card members, when they show their card, they get to the head of the line. And then their food is expedited, their order is expedited. So there's, a number of different things that, like you said, are free. Restaurants, are you willing to have the lights the lights turned down and the music off and all that kind of type stuff? And it's really not rocket science. It's just kind of, being aware and accepting, and like we said, just lead with love. It's fairly simple. And it's really the low-hanging fruit to DEI, and of course, as we all know, it's a loyal and growing population. So whatever I can do to help you in your efforts, pick up one of our DMO maps if you want, and I'm just here to serve and spread autism awareness. That's my passion. So whatever I can do to help you specifically, please don't hesitate to ask.
All right, great. Lynn?
Well, one of the things that we have we have a sunflower website, and on our website we give our members a space. So if you are having a special performance, or if you do have a quiet period or a special sensory room, it's a place where if you're researching travel and you see that on the space, you can list everything that you might have to offer, or any special events that are coming up, or anything that may interest people. So once again, they will know what's happening and get more information and be able to utilize that when they plan their travel.
Yeah, communication is the theme, right?
I think one thing just that's really important to note, we're used to fighting for ourselves. We're used to making things work as is. Most of your families are going to be used to not being accommodated. Mm-hmm. We're used to that. That's the expectation, is that we are not going to be accommodated. We are used to the expectation that we're going to get funny looks. We're used to not getting our needs met. So your families are not going to be lining up at the door going, how are you accommodating us with our child with a neurodivergency, or with us with a neurodivergency? They're not going to do that.
Grateful, right, for any.
Well, even beyond that, they're just not even thinking of it because they're so used to not having it. Mm-hmm. So if you are putting it on your website, not just we're autism friendly or neurodivergency friendly, but listing out the ways that you are going to see the influx of people, because they're going to, one, they're not looking for it because they don't think you have it. And then you show that you do, and you start talking about it and promoting it, you are going to draw those people into you, and you're going to see them coming. They're going to be people that you didn't expect. Oh my gosh, I didn't know your family dealt with anything like that. Come on in, we'll make a place for you. Giving us that space is critical, but letting us know that you have it is the most important.
Yep. If you want them to know that there's steak for dinner, you got to let them hear it sizzle. Okay. On that note, sorry, I couldn't resist. On that note,
We're running low on time, but we do have a few minutes if we want to open it up. We've got 5 minutes exactly. But we do have some time for questions. Does anybody want to ask a question? Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you all for sharing all of your wisdom and information with us. I'm with Travel Portland. My name is Angela, and I am the Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And actually, we are starting to do some things internally. We have a sensory room. We have, we're training with Culture City to certify our visitor center that just opened, and we just took the autism certification, my colleague and I. So we are starting to do the things. I think where, the rubber meets the road, and trying to change systemically in our operations is working with our existing systems, to make sure that our partners can indicate or check off when when I have a partner sign up, right? Being able to go in and be able to say, these are the accommodations we make, and I don't know how granular our systems currently have, and I won't, without they're in the room. So I think that's the next practical step for, I think, some of my DO partners, I think we have some general awareness of what needs to happen, but it's the
implementation.
And that can get complicated, and I believe a lot of things can be complicated when you're trying to change and think about inclusion from all realms. And so that's one of the things, we're really working through is our systems, for our partners. And then I will just say, restaurants are challenging for us because because they don't feed into our revenue source. For I would say our destination, and so there's not that, they're not feeling as beholden to the, outreach that we have with them. Now, absolutely, they're part of our ecosystem, but it's much easier to work with our hotel partners.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think, the message is just to kind of start right somewhere.
Really.
To start making those inroads where we can. And so, but I certainly appreciate and want to have further conversations with all of you, because I do think we will continue to get there, as we know it is a journey, and we certainly welcome the opportunity to just get started.
So for those of you, I don't know if in the back they heard, but just talking about how to make those systemic changes, how to get partners kind of on the train, especially maybe those restaurant partners can be difficult. They may not be part of the DMO system, but they are. I will say just really briefly that I don't know if that was really part of your question, but when we talk about, inclusion and accessibility, obviously it's the right thing to do. It's something that can't be ignored. The number of folks that are impacted by this is huge, which, there is a lot of education that needs to be done with, organizations like restaurants still to this day, as far as how many folks this is impacting. And even the folks that are already going to those restaurants that are having a difficult time, but they're trying to make it work. But in cases like that, even with hotels, we know that staffing, could be a challenge. So as far as like the data that IBCCS, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but like whenever you're rolling out an accessibility program, but I have data on what we've done, but just in general, we always get feedback that the employee morale goes up. People are excited about it once they understand what it is. They're working for a hotel, they're working for a restaurant. Is that bringing like deep meaning to their life? I don't know, maybe not. But if they see that their organization is doing more to help people, usually that is a great motivator for them. And also statistically, a lot of the staff is going to be neurodivergent, whether they've identified that to their boss or not. So when we talk to organizations that struggle with staffing, that maybe want to be accessible but don't necessarily want to take the steps to do so, talking about employee morale, talking about staff retention, and also talking about making it easier on them. Don't you, as the restaurant, want to have less incidents and issues with people coming to your restaurant and getting overwhelmed or complaining about the menu or making special requests that you're not prepared for? Don't you want to make your life easier? This is a way to do that. It does take a little bit of work in the beginning, but this can also just help your processes go more smoothly and help your staff maybe not make those errors that then turn into a really bad Yelp review or a really bad experience. So anyway, sort of touching on their pain points, I would say, is another way to open up that conversation. Yes?
This is not my area of expertise. However, I do deal with clients, that are on the spectrum, and definitely those that have food allergies. I go to a lot of restaurants, just because I don't cook that much anymore, and I've never been asked by a wait staff, does anybody here have a food allergy? On cruise ships, it's just about become the norm now, that at every meal, even if you have the same waiter or waitress, at every meal, you will be asked, does anybody have any food allergies? And I feel they really go out of their way to accommodate, we suggest that there's an issue, please talk to the maitre d' at the beginning of the cruise and let them know, how you need your food prepared and so forth and so on. So just, an alternative to maybe staying at hotels in strange cities and dealing with restaurants. But I personally think that restaurants need to adapt that situation where they do ask.
With our family, she's talking about the difference between a restaurant and a cruise. She's not really asked regularly about food allergies at a restaurant, but on the cruise lines, they do ask. And yes, they do. In fact, that's part of the SOP for all of them now, is to ask. They're supposed to be asking every single time. The big difference for me is that I know I can go pretty much anywhere and get a plain piece of meat, steamed vegetables, and a fruit cup for dessert, while the person next to me is eating this beautifully curated meal with the sauce and the tower of seafood and the dessert with it's not the same experience at all. And I think that we've talked a lot about dietary equitability recently with a lot of those places. But the most important thing that I think all of us agree on is preparation is everything. Preparation and communication is everything. The more we talk, the more we communicate, the more we set up ahead of time, the better the experience is going to be.
Yeah, being proactive. That's our time. But I mean, we're all hanging around today. So if you want to ask us questions, thank you so much for attending. And that's our time.
Okay.